Look at this. I made the crash boxes. I made the nitroglycerin one, the green one, and the one with the question mark. But I still intend to make one more, which is the red dynamite one. But we'll do that together. So, are you interested? Do you want to find out how I made these boxes here? Then just keep going. So guys, I'm making this box here for decoration, but it can also be used to store things inside. There are some things stored inside this box. To get to this result, I looked at various YouTube channels, including some that did exactly the crash box, and some other craft channels that didn't do exactly this box, but I picked up a few tips until I got to this result. As I made 2 of them, and I liked how it turned out, I decided to bring it here to the channel. We don't do craft content here, but we do talk about video games. So, as it's a decoration related to a video game, I thought it would be nice to feature it. So, the first thing we'll need to know in order to build this box here are the materials we'll have to use. The materials we're going to use to make the box. 2 sheets of EVA, the normal kind, 0.2 centimeters. I bought white, but it doesn't matter, it can be any color, because we're going to paint over it. And since we're talking about painting, I'm using these EVA paints. The black I'm using to make a background and paint the whole box, and then we'll paint the colors on top. The yellow to make the stripes and letters, and I'm using 2 colors to paint the boxes. In the case of the red box, I bought this red one here and an orange one. I plan to mix this orange with a bit of red to make it a lighter red and have 2 shades of red, so we can create a worn box effect with some colors lighter than others. And we'll use brushes to paint it. This brush here is the thickest one I'm using, but we'll also need thin brushes to paint some details. The thicker brush should ideally have slightly stiffer bristles, so we can achieve a scratched effect on the wood. We're not going to cut anything with scissors. We're going to use the stylus to make the cut as straight as possible. And for this, we're going to use a ruler, placing the ruler and cutting with the stylus. We're also going to need glue. So most things are going to be glued with this EVA and styrofoam glue, but I'm also using this glue here, which is Tech Bond, to glue some details. Tech Bond is the same thing as super glue. I prefer to buy Tech Bond because the can is bigger, it comes with more glue, it's cheaper, and it's exactly the same as the others. In the end, we'll use these half pearls here to make the screws and glue them on as if they were screws. I haven't even done this on the boxes that are ready yet, but I'm going to glue them all together in the end. This plywood box here is 15 centimeters in all directions, only the height is a little more, because of the lid. But when we glue the EVA on, we'll end up making it a perfect cube. There's a little bit of slack in the lid, but when we glue the EVA on too, it'll close perfectly. Perhaps the hardest thing for you to find is the box. Or maybe you'll find the box, but it's not exactly like that. If you find any box that's a cube, you can make it, even if it's bigger or smaller than this one. You'll just have to adapt the size to fit the size of your box. But I don't think it's that hard to find a box like this. If you can't find one, you can still try to make your own box out of cardboard. All the materials we're going to use here, I bought at the stationery store. So I think you'll be able to find them quite easily. Our box has these little pieces of wood here, making the outline on the whole side. And for this size, this wood, I used 2 centimeters. And I thought it was a good proportion for the 15 centimeters of height and width that we have on the face. So you can use this as a proportion. 15 centimeters, the height of the box, to 2 centimeters, the size of the stripe. And then, if you have a different size box, you'll have to use a rule of 3. But I have a problem. Here's the problem. I have a lid on my box. And then this lid, it has a ledge here on the front, and I'm using this ledge as one of the pieces of wood. So I'm only going to make the others with EVA. But this size is too big. If I made everything this size, it wouldn't look good. So I made a line here, and I'm going to saw off a piece of the lid. And then when I take it off, it will be exactly 2 centimeters, and the others will be made with 2 centimeters of EVA. I didn't put saw and sandpaper in the list of materials, because I'm going to have to do this with my box, but you won't necessarily have to do it too. For example, if you're going to make it out of cardboard, you'll have to make it the right size. So, be aware that I'll at least have to saw off a piece of the lid and sand it down so that the box is exactly the way I want it. Before we go any further, remember to subscribe to the channel. We have 1 video a week, always on something related to pop culture. There's a lot of content about video games. So remember to subscribe to the channel to keep up and not miss anything. So, let's go. Let's keep going. Now let's start making our box. The first thing I did was put some glass here, so as not to scratch the table. And here's the idea. I'm going to take the EVA and cut it out so we can cover all the sides of our box, just leaving the hole here in the middle. I'm going to start with the bottom, so I'm going to use the drawing of the corner of the EVA and cut a piece to fit the bottom, using the box itself as a template. Then I'll draw it with a pencil and cut it out using the ruler and stylus. So, let's go! Now that we've cut out our EVA square, I'm going to apply this EVA glue all over the bottom here, and we're going to glue the EVA to the bottom of the box. Now that we've glued the bottom of the box, we'll repeat the same process for all the sides. Only now I'm going to put a side here to draw where I want to cut the EVA, and I'm going to cross it out. But now, considering the thickness of the side we've put here, I'm going to do this on the side below and the one opposite. Because when we glue this side here, we're going to take into account the thickness of this EVA on the bottom and the two sides that we've just placed so that the front of the box is closed properly. So, I'm going to do this on this box and we'll come back in a bit. I've finished gluing the EVA on all sides. But what happens? Here, in these corners, they still have these burrs sticking out. So, on all the joints between two EVAs, on all these edges here, I'm going to apply a little Tech Bond. Only on these joints, because this Tech Bond is a very strong glue. So it wouldn't be possible to glue all the faces with it, but if we put it just a little bit right here at the joint, it will make the box much more resistant. So it has to be just a little... I finished applying the glue to the corner of the box, and now here's what we're going to do. We're going to divide the sides into 5 parts, so that it looks like the box is built from a few planks. So, as it's 15 centimeters long, I'm going to mark every 3 centimeters, and we're going to do it as if it were divided into 5 pieces. I've drawn all the lines on all the sides of the box. You can push the pencil here to form a relief and really make it look like the boxes are made up of separate taboos. You don't have to come all the way down here, because we're still going to glue a 2 centimeter piece of EVA on top. And now I'm going to draw some grooves here to simulate a wood effect. I'm going to do it very lightly just to form the design, and then I'm going to push the pencil in to get a relief like the one here that we've already drawn on the box. I've finished making all the marks. Now we're going to put the box to one side and cut out some strips of EVA to make the wood around the sides. To do this, I'm going to mark off 2 centimeters on either side and cut using the ruler so that it's very straight, and we have to make as many strips as possible because we're going to use a lot. I've finished making all the strips. I think these are enough, and now we'll use them to glue the box together. I've put the lid on here, because we'll have to glue the strip down from the lid. And then I'm going to do the following. This side here, it doesn't have any seams, because the seams I put here, on this side. So I'm going to keep trying to maintain the same pattern, to try to keep one side without any seams, so we can make it as perfect as possible to be the one we put on the front of the box. So here I'm going to put the strip, aligned with the side, because when we put the other one up here, it will cover the seam and the front will be completely smooth. Then I have to do this around the whole box. I'm going to start at the bottom because as the lid is already serving as one of the strips and it's already whole, I'm left with a whole one down here too. And then I'll have to cut it to put it on the 2 sides. So I'll do that and be right back. I finished gluing all the strips to all the sides of the box. The only one I'm not going to glue is the lid. And one thing I haven't told you yet. The lid we're going to use as if it were the bottom of the box. So the box will look like this, with the lid down. And then if we want to store something inside, we'll have to turn it over and take the lid off. So here, we're going to leave it flat, as if it were the bottom. And here, what would be the bottom will actually be the top of the box. And then we're going to glue the strip in the middle, making an X, with these boards, making an X in the box. To maintain a pattern, I'm going to glue a whole strip of the ones that are in this position, and then I'm going to cut 2 pieces to join them here and make the other one. We won't go over it. I'm going to cut the pieces so that they fit right here, and I'm going to glue them together using the same glue, the EVA glue, and I'm also going to use Tech Bond in the corners. I did that on these strips here, and I'm also going to do it on the strips in the middle, because that's what's going to make the box firm. So let's do that. I've finished the box, at least the box part is ready. All that's left is to paint it. I've glued everything I said I was going to glue. The parts up here, simulating wood. I made drawings simulating wood grooves on the whole box, on all sides. You can make them very deep because we're still going to paint over them, so they'll end up covering a lot, and then we'll have to mark them again. I had said I was going to use 2 sheets of EVA, but I ended up using just 1. 1 was enough. If you don't waste anything, 1 sheet is enough to make at least 1 box. So now to paint it, I'm going to remove the lid and paint everything black. The lid and the outside of the box. And once I've painted everything black, I'll start painting it the color it should be, which is red. So let's paint it. I painted the whole box black with 2 coats of paint. Painting the whole thing black is good because we make a background to put the paint that's really going to be the color of the box on top. And we cover up all the glue marks and any stains left on the EVA. Now that the black paint has dried, I'm going to start painting everything red before we try to do any kind of texture, wood, any aged effect. I'm just going to paint it completely red around the whole box, just like I did with the black. I painted the whole box red. I gave it 2 coats of paint, and I could give it a 3rd, because you can see that there are some darker parts here from the black paint that was underneath. But I'm not going to do that because we're still going to apply the red paint a little lighter on top. And this non-uniformity may seem strange now, but later on it will help the box not to look so flat in color. And this will make it look more like wood in the end. So what I'm going to do is remark these relief lines that we made, and I'm going to use the same red paint mixed with a bit of black paint, and I'm also going to use it in the corners to give it a darker look. You'll see that these lines will darken up nicely and give the box a completely different look. I painted all the lines with a mixture of red and black paint and a little water, so they're quite dark now, but the red of the box is still very flat. So, to give it an aged box effect, I'm going to paint over it with a lighter paint. I mixed a bit of orange with red, but I thought it was still too dark, so I mixed a bit of white on one part, and it turned out almost pink. I thought this shade looked good. So, the idea is to take a dry brush and remove the excess paint. And we'll go over it as if we were just smearing it in a few spots, so that we have some lighter streaks, giving the idea that it's an aged effect. Be careful not to overdo it, otherwise it will be too light and we'll have to paint red over it again. So do it little by little, always remembering to remove the excess paint from the paper. Otherwise you'll end up putting too much paint on the box. There was one part that I asked my wife to help me with because I was tired of making this box. So I filmed her doing it with her cell phone, and she did some of the texture on the box. To do this, we mixed the same red paint that's in the background with a little white paint with water and a little black paint with water to make it a little lighter and a little darker. Then, using a fine brush, we made several scratches on the whole box, all in the same direction, to simulate the scratches in the wood. But they're very obvious even when you mix them with water. To remove some of the color from the scratches we've made, after we've covered the whole box, we take the same red paint we used on the bottom, mix it with a little water and brush it over the whole box again, because then the red paint mixed with water will become a little transparent, so it will cover up the scratches we've just made, but not completely, giving an effect similar to wood texture. It's very difficult to make one of these colored boxes look like wood, because they don't have the color of wood. The brown box in the question mark is easier, but I think the result is looking good. It's almost finished. All that's left now is for us to make the yellow stripes and paint the TNT lettering. So I printed it out in a size that I thought would look good, and I'm gonna cross it out, cut it out with scissors, and I'm gonna pencil around it to make a template, and then after I've crossed it out, I'm going to paint it with yellow paint, and then we'll make the stripes. I've finished making the box. Finally, it was a lot of work to make it here. I'll show you how it looks in detail. But before that, if you liked this video, in this do-it-yourself style, on this channel we've already made labels for Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64 cartridges. We've whitened plastic from old controllers and consoles and completely removed all the yellowing. We've already repaired, opened, and repaired a PS1 controller that I found selling for $5, so this controller was dead and revived. I'll leave the link to all these videos here on the card, so you can have a look. So let's see what the box looks like. Guys, we're coming to the end of another video. That's it for today. We're finishing up. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I've helped you in some way, added something. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you then. Thank you very much, and goodbye.